Welcome to Tried and True. We're back. It is 2024. We haven't done a pod in a minute, but 2024 Tried and True. We're very excited to have you all here. It's Mitch and Clay, and we have a lot to talk about. The offseason in particular, lack thereof, maybe. We've got some first impressions of spring training already. MLB, a little bit of a shakeup in the offseason. There was some big signings Mariners were not a part of, but that's okay. And maybe some bad injury news for the Mariners as well. Some lingering things out there that may not be totally optimistic for the Mariners season. But we'll kick it off with some off-season news. Mitch, first off, Mitch, how are you doing? How's everything going?
Dude, it's fucking good to be back. It is
Love that.
finally spring training. We're getting to see first impressions of, some players popping off, Ryan Bliss, all that good stuff. Had a big day today. I am just I'm happy to see the boys out there playing some baseball in some maybe see-through pants and odd-looking jerseys,
Oh,
but yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's a
First order of business, Fanatics.
Fanatics
Fanatics is taking
suck.
a absolute beating
Yeah.
on just every social media platform. There's a weird cohort of people that love the pants, though. I'll be honest. Like, there's a
Women,
weird community,
probably.
women, and I have a couple of friends that have been sending me some texts that they don't mind it either, which is interesting. But yeah, Fanatics, we'll call a spade a spade. Fanatics just has like straight up see-through pants that they
Yeah.
gave everybody. So if you're wearing white pants this year, you better be wearing some sort of like I don't know, those like joggers. Like, you got to wear something
hmm
underneath there. Maybe some tights action, some long John Silvers. Like, whatever you need to do, you got to cover it up. You got to protect yourself.
Dude,
Protect packages. So
I was joking about it, but like if some dude doesn't wear underwear, like the whole MLB comes crashing down. It's over. Like you got to
I mean,
start streaming games on OnlyFans.
there was literally a picture of somebody bending over, and I mean, like, I forget the player, but
It's
it
there.
was
Yeah,
like
it's there.
it was incredible. It was their whole everything. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're bending
I
over,
think it was
you're
Xander
getting
Bogaerts and
you're
some Giants player are like the main ones that were around social
poor
media.
guys. Poor guys.
Yeah, no
Fanatics is
kidding.
just
They don't deserve it.
outing these guys. They don't. No. On top of Fanatics, there was a couple of big signings this offseason. Otani to
Absolutely.
the Dodgers. We have Juan Soto to the Yankees. Thoughts on either one of those? Obviously, superstars in the MLB, but
Yeah.
thoughts on either one of those? I think I'm just happy not having either one of them in the AL West, since there was rumors
100%.
of the Rangers, Angels, obviously were in the mix still to re-sign them. But thoughts on those two, or maybe an interesting signing that you felt was at least impactful to the Mariners?
I think it is. I mean, in regards to how much it impacts the Mariners, Otani being out of the American League and out of the AL West is one of the biggest.
Huge.
Not only that, but Julio now has higher MVP chances, which is really cool.
Great point. Love
Yeah,
that. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
but the Dodgers actually, a few things happened this offseason that I think was really interesting. The Mets and the Padres over the last year went from immediate contender with like unlimited amounts of money
Mm-hmm.
to selling everything for prospects and just like instantly building the farm.
Right.
I it's I don't think people realize because obviously that wasn't what they wanted, but they're in an instant rebuild. Like both teams went from like having pretty much nothing to having stocked farm systems, pretty decent teams to be honest, like Mariners like 500 above, looking teams. I just don't think people realize like it obviously sucks, but um, spending money and when it doesn't work out still works out. The other thing
100%.
was obviously the Dodgers just like cheating. They completely changed the game and how players get signed to teams. Deferring contracts to like 2040 is bananas. Um,
Nobody's ever seen it done. I don't know if there was. I think Brian Cashman had the funniest interview about this. The Yankees GM, longtime GM, but
Hmm.
they asked if the Yankees offered a similar contract, and he started laughing. He's like, "No, like I don't." And he's like, "Were you given the opportunity to basically match?" And he's like, "No, like I've never even heard of a contract like that." Which goes to show you that like GMs and front offices, they're just people too. Like they like
Yeah, yeah.
genuinely, there's probably tons of front offices or GMs across the league texting each other, being like, "Dude, did you see this contract? Like, did you see the structure of this
I
thing?"
I love the
And
picture in my head of like the Pirates and the A's like GMs just like, dude, what is going on? Are you seeing this? Like it's a
dude,
reality TV show or something.
even Art Moreno is like, what? I could have deferred all that money. So
Yeah,
if you haven't seen Shohei Ohtani's contract, please go look it up. He essentially is making $2 million a year for the next, I believe, 10 years. He
yeah, something
deferred
like
the
that.
rest of his, I believe, 40 million year over year contract to 2030 to 2040. So he will get paid $38 million from 2030 to 2040, when honestly he will not be playing for the Dodgers, or it may be on a different contract or something like that. But
Yeah.
when the contract expires is really when the Dodgers have to start paying. So a very interesting concept that I don't think, to be honest, the MLB loves. Like I
Right,
don't.
yeah. I
If Shohei Ohtani wasn't the biggest thing in the MLB and he wasn't Shohei Ohtani, I'm not sure that the MLB wouldn't, push back a little bit more on this and be like, yo, like this does not set a good precedent of like just pushing money out forever and ever.
mhm.
And the Dodgers, I mean, just basically put a bet in that they would like the world to end by 2030 so they never have to pay
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani, while getting Shohei Ohtani's prime years at $2 million a year. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just absurd. So
I
I
mean,
think
and
that yeah, it's just not good for the MLB. I'll be honest. Like I just don't think that
I
it's a
agree.
competitive balance kind of thing. But for teams in small markets, I can see how that could be interesting. Although it's kind of like mortgaging, putting a second mortgage on your house, right?
A little
Like
bit,
if
yeah.
your team doesn't pan out, or something happens, you're still on the hook for that money. Like come,
100%.
when rent is due, you still got to go pay it.
Yeah, and obviously there have been contracts like this in the past. It's why we have Bobby Bonilla Day, which is
Sure,
just
sure.
everyone's favorite day. Um,
Even King
but
Griffey, King Griffey
yeah,
was
King
the,
Griffey's still getting paid.
I believe Griffey was the third highest paid Red in 2022. I'll have to
Right.
go fact check that, but I believe we posted that at one point in 2022, congratulating King Griffey Jr. on getting paid the third highest amount for the Reds. So the deferment is not unusual. I
Hmm.
think the thing that is unusual here, and Bobby Bonilla and King Griffey Jr., they were getting the bulk of their payments still. They deferred a little bit of their contract. Like they deferred 3, 4, $5 million. Shohei Ohtani is deferring $38 million a year. Like he's deferring like $400 million
Yeah,
almost of his money. So like this is the unprecedented part that we're talking about. It's not necessarily the deferment concept. It's that you're basically mortgaging all of that. It's a great deal for the Dodgers. Don't get me wrong. Like
100%. Yeah.
the Dodgers are going
If
to
you're the
make
Dodgers, you're so happy. Like, and it's again, it's not that this is the first time it's happened. It's just multiple players on the same team all getting paid around the same time. The 2030s is going to be such a weird time for the Dodgers
right.
when I just I don't really understand it, but they'll have a dynasty for the next 10 years. You have to be
Yeah.
happy about that if you're a Dodgers fan.
And
Ecstatic,
that's not even talking about Yamamoto signing with the
right?
Dodgers, one of the most highly touted international projects of this signing. Honestly, I dare to say that he's probably the most highly touted international prospect since Otani. It seems like that was the buzz around him. He certainly
Yeah,
got
that's
paid
pretty
that
fair.
amount. So Otani and Yamamoto signing both, while also having Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, former MVPs on your team. It's going to be an interesting year, but the Dodgers for sure are heavy World Series favorites. Going away from the rest of the MLB, let's focus on the Mariners a little bit. The Mariners off season here. Thoughts on how the offseason turned out? It seemed like it was a little bit rocky in the beginning. There was a lot of frustration. I think
Oh yeah.
everybody had really high hopes. So to set the stage a little bit, I think, we were under the impression, I think even the front office was under the impression that they'd be able to get to a certain number. That number, I believe, was around 150, 155 million
Hmm.
in total salary for 2024. I believe that changed with some of the TV and regional deals that were made 10 years ago. And I believe our budget is now around 135 million. So getting cut about $20 million, you can see how that might impact going after a big arm like Blake Snell, like Cody Bellinger, Jorge Soler. So some of those players immediately kind of chalked off the board there, or so it seems like. Matt Chapman, we can throw in that list as well. But as they stay on the market and their values seemingly start dwindling as every day passes in spring training, it gets more interesting. But the Mariners turned it around a little bit in the offseason. The Mariners seem to have a couple of good trades and things like that. So give me your thoughts on the Mariners offseason overall.
I think a lot of people want to hate the Mariners for not spending, which I totally understand. I definitely get it. John Stanton is a bastard. I hate him. But overall, I just don't see how you can't see the offseason as a win. Mitch Garver signing was one of the best hitters on the market. If you think otherwise, you don't know ball. That dude is insane. Um, Gregory Santos was another great trade that the Mariners made. A third reliever to back up Munoz and Brash, something the Mariners definitely needed. I was actually fine with the bullpen as it was. Dipoto seems to pick relievers up off the street and turn them into great baseball players, so I wasn't too worried about it. But now having him along with Gabe Spear and Trent Thornton and a bunch of the Saucedo, bunch of really good arms in the bullpen. Yet another year of the Mariners having a monster bullpen, probably. Um, Outside of that, traded away Robbie Ray, probably for the best. Didn't get rid of Bryce Miller or Brian Wu. Huge in my opinion.
Huge.
I think if you were trading one of those two away, you were getting a monstrous haul, which no team was going to give up. So I was completely fine with that. Um, yeah, grabbing Haniger back if he's healthy this year, he's going to be really solid. Um, I know he didn't play well last year, but I just don't care. Haniger's a great player. Mm,
Yeah.
and then the Luke Rayleigh Caballero straight across trade, phenomenal. Just perfect
Love that.
stuff. Yeah, perfect stuff. And what about
Yeah,
you?
I mean, you're hitting on all the highlights of the Dipoto masterclass that he really
Yeah,
put on towards the end of the offseason. Honestly, very impressive how we were able to recoup. Um, it's honestly unfortunate that they didn't know going into the offseason that this would be the case. It
yeah,
seems
no
like they
kidding.
would be able to have a couple extra months to kind of prepare. Um, but overall, I mean, great. It turned out to be, I would say, a B off season. It wasn't perfect because he didn't have the money to get to the A. Um, but overall, I don't know what more you could want from the offseason. Like, you shored up your outfield positions, you got a little bit of depth, and we're seeing this spring that, lo and behold, the Mariners have more depth than we originally thought they had. They have a lot of pieces that are, right there or very close, at least a year out. Um, they really like, and they also front loaded their draft class last year with a bunch of bats. The
Yep,
three first rounders that the Mariners have, all high school hitters, which means all 18, 19-year-old hitters. And we saw one yesterday, Cole Young, that is already, I mean, 2 RBI double yesterday, coming along really nicely. So very, very impressed. So
100%. I was actually looking at the 2021 draft the other day, and that was Harry Ford, Brian Wu, Bryce Miller. That was just, dude, so impressive. That could actually be one of the best drafts the Mariners um, have for a while. although 22 and actually really just 23 is going to look really good too. Um, with
I
Ty
mean,
Pete, Colt Emerson, and one more, I forget the other.
if you really had to judge the Mariners on player development, drafting and player development, where we are now, where we are now compared to where we were with the Jack Z era
Oh,
is
it's
like
not even
night and
close.
day. I mean, we would hit on like one prospect every 3 years, but like besides that, we would like rush people up. Dustin Ackley, I'm unfortunately looking at you. Like there was a bunch of kids that didn't even make it to the league. Nick, what's his name? Nick Franklin, first round
Nick
draft pick,
Franklin.
ended up being a Tampa Bay Ray.
Was Brad Miller part of that? I can't remember. He was kind of part of that.
He was either the year before, or later in that draft class,
But
but
yeah,
same
horrible
rules apply.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, same rules apply. So definitely something that is much improved, which I'm excited about. Also, a article coming out that Julio was one of those people that were arguing for keeping Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, which
So dope.
that's just iconic. Love that.
Dude,
I mean, it's the
yeah.
easiest thing to look at and be like, you know what? We've got to trade one of our strong suits for a weakness that we have on our team. But it takes real like strategy to be like, you know what, we're going to keep our core together and we are going to really develop the guys that we think could be in those places. And
Yeah.
Polanco, lo and behold, Polanco comes along, the price gets a little
Dude,
bit
yeah.
cheaper for him, and he shores up a spot that has been just a disaster the past couple of years. And so, very excited for a mainstay second baseman. We haven't really had one since Robbie Cano, really, and so excited about that. And then third base is really the only place of need. What are your projections for Urias and Rojas there?
That's really a tough one. When you look at Rojas, he's had a rough time in the MLB so far. I think he started off the season pretty tough, but the second half with the Mariners, past the trade deadline, he was electric. Like the kid was a completely different player. I don't know what it is about T-Mobile that he did so well in, but I'm kind of excited for him, to be honest. I would love to see Josh Rojas become a really good player. I don't really know much about Urias, but dude, I don't know if there's much to know. He's kind of a whatever player. He'll be there for sure. He'll be out taking some at bats and playing third base, but I don't think we're expecting really anything from third base this year. Um, One thing that will be interesting is what the outfield will look like within the next few years, left field and right field, depending on what Haniger does this year and how Canzone does and Cade Marlowe, and it'll be interesting to see how it shakes up. But I'm pretty excited for this year. I think they did a lot, and I think they did enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that as the offseason progressed and you started seeing players like Mitch Garver, Luke Raley, Polanco start
Hmm.
coming along, and you're like, oh damn, like they're actually putting together a
Yeah,
nice little offseason. Like, yes, was it unconventional? Of course. Would we want to spend a little bit more money to go after some of these other guys? Sure. But as we've talked about many times on the podcast and on Twitter, this was never the offseason to spend money. It was last
dude.
offseason.
Yeah,
Like when you have Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, all of those big boys that started picking their spots, and Francisco Lindor was on that list. Like, yes, overpriced, maybe, sure. But do they fill positions of need that are desperately needed in the MLB? That's the premium price that you have to pay. So
100%.
as
Yeah,
as those guys went off the board in 2022, that offseason into 2023, I think you really saw the Mariners have kind of this facade around them where it was like, oh, don't worry, guys, we'll spend in 2023. And everybody's like, why? Like, there's really nobody. If you told me Cody Bellinger would be the prized possession of the offseason, I'd be like, dude, get out of here. Like, come on.
yeah.
He had a great 2023. Glad he bet on himself. He got paid for it. Really happy for him. but Cody Bellinger is not his MVP self. And that is
No.
not the guy that I want. Like, to be fair, like, I don't want to pay him $100 million to sit in left field for, I think
Yeah.
he's probably going to hit 220, 230. One, if not two of the 3 years, maybe have like a little bit of a bounce back. But like, I think he would be a total flop at T-Mobile, to be honest. I think he would be like a 22 home run guy, 230, and probably get booed in his last season, getting paid $35 million
It's
a year. Like, that seems like that he was a perfect candidate to be that guy.
it's tough not to be pessimistic about this draft class when it's just filled with Robbie Ray-ish guys. When you're looking at Blake Snell obviously better than Robbie Ray in my opinion. But it's
But
just
you're
kind
right.
of
Like,
like
the point you're making is very specific, because there's a lot of these guys. Blake Snell, like, I hope nobody forgot what Blake Snell was before he won the Cy Young last year. Blake Snell was a guy that was almost on the outs of the MLB, barely made the Padres roster almost. Like, he had a 5+ ERA the majority of some of these seasons. And yes, he went through some injuries and went through some issues with the Rays, but like, he was a guy that was like, before his Cy Young year last year, people were wondering if he would get a second big contract.
yeah.
Like, people were like, he might be a prove it guy, go somewhere for 10 million a year, be a back end starter, and then that's kind of his career. He could have
Yeah.
easily floated off like our boy Marco, and thrown 87 to 88 and rode off into the sunset. But I'm happy for Blake Snell, Seattle guy. He's going to get his money no matter what. There was a report that came out that the Yankees offered him 185 million over 6 years, which would pay him $30+ million a year. I think that I don't know what else he wants. Like, getting a 6-year deal,
Yeah.
30 million. Like, you were just, and I might be over exaggerating. He might not have been on the outs of the MLB. Like, he was going to find a home, but like, he certainly wasn't. I don't know what the odds were for him winning a Cy Young last year, but they had to be outrageous. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, a
I mean,
$10 ticket probably paid
he
out
wasn't a yeah,
$2,000.
he wasn't a Cy Young winner in 2022 obviously. Like he wasn't even close and then he's just had some inconsistent years is all we're saying.
Yeah.
Where he's
Same
a
with
Cy Young winner
Bellinger.
one
So
year.
Bellinger and Snell are in the same boat. Like,
Yeah,
they
they are
had those MVP
100%.
years, they had those Cy Young years, but typically, like, if they regress to the mean's not all that great, guys. Like, the
Yeah.
mean is not like somewhere that you want
It's not something
to
you
pay
want, yeah.
somebody $30 million for. So,
And after the Colton Wong, AJ Pollock of a season we just had, it's really hard not to, take a look at those guys and think, well, the worst is absolutely going to happen to the Mariners, so let's
yeah.
not do that.
Listen, it's not even this last year. It's 21 years of like pain
Yeah.
about free agents. Even, I mean, listen, Cano at least had a couple of years, right? So
Yeah.
Cano's not on that list of like just
The
terrible.
Cano
And
Cruz years were nice.
yeah, like, we're not going to put him on that list, but like, there were some years where I mean, Richie Sexton comes to mind, Adrian Beltre comes to mind too. Like, we love Adrian Beltre, but like, dude, he totally mailed it in for the Mariners until he went to the Rangers. Like, if you look at his stats,
Shit.
literally like MVP candidate for the Dodgers, gets a big contract with the Mariners, dips all 5 years he was with the Mariners, and then all of a sudden rejuvenates his career with the Rangers and is like an MVP caliber player again. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. Like, I like the guy, but that is bullshit, dude. Like,
Yeah,
it's so frustrating having somebody like that where you're just like, I don't know. We got Marine layered. I
yeah.
don't know what to tell you. So
It really just feels like we're always flipping the coin. Like you either get Nelson Cruz or you get Teoscar Hernandez. Like
100%.
these both players really good, incredible bats. One just shows up, one doesn't. Obviously they're putting an effort. It's just tough.
Yeah, there's one guy that I do want to highlight from this offseason. That's Gregory Santos, White Sox guy. We really traded him for a bag of chips, essentially. And back end guy that can throw 103, has had some shoulder problems in the past, is going to start the season on the IL, most likely, it seems. But really nice arm. really nice. I remember
Dude, yeah.
when he was facing the Mariners this last season, and the amount of break that he has on a two seam fastball at 103 miles an hour
It's gross.
is just disgusting. Just like one of those
Yeah.
freak of nature, has the perfect arm slot naturally, has the arm strength naturally, and he has this 12 to 18 inches of run on a two seam fastball that just seems outrageous. So, I'm very excited for Gregory Santos. And it might be even more important to get Gregory Santos healthy because there has been a little bit of rumors coming out, and we'll talk about, we'll shift gears from this offseason talking about some of the things we liked of the offseason to some of the things now in spring training are coming out. And Matt Brash has had some arm things happening. Nobody really knows what's going on. Service is being a little bit cagey about what's going on with Matt Brash and how severe potentially his arm injury is. But Matt Brash showed up to spring training, and all of a sudden, after a few days of throwing in the pen, he's saying he's got a couple of arm issues. So, on a scale of 1 to 10 here, how worried are we about Matt Brash? Is this something that
That's
we're worried about for 2024?
um that's kind of tough. Because to be honest, I don't even worry about Andres Munoz, and he was hurt for a lot of 23. Um, I just think of those guys as workhorses. Like they just kind of do their thing. I don't think it's too much cause for concern until I hear a report that some crazy injury has occurred and he's going to be out for a while. I'm not really going to believe too much. I think they'll go a little soft in spring training, bring him up to speed. I think we'll see him opening day. I don't know if we'll see Gregory Santos. It seemed like his stuff was taking a little bit longer to get figured out, but um, Matt Brash, I'm not too worried about it.
I'm gonna take the opposite side here a little bit. I'm gonna be
Uh-oh.
honest. I
Armageddon.
like my worry meter is decently high on this one, and I I think the reason why is because I've been waiting for this a little bit, watching Matt
Mm,
Brash throw. I'm nowhere near a like engineer expert of pitching mechanics, anything like that. But when you hear Matt Brash talk about how he throws his slider and how he throws it as hard as he can, like he throws a fastball, it just gives you the impression that there might be
warms
a
the
lot of
heart.
there might be a lot of straight on that right arm.
Yeah.
And you never hope for an injury. That's definitely not what's happening here. I have just got the little gut feeling over the last 2 years that with Matt Brash's innings being where they are and how we use him and how he throws the baseball, there is eventually going to be some problems with Matt Brash. Like it just seems like there is a high likelihood that he is going to have some type of injury. And you hope that he stays healthy. I hope that we can be optimistic that he's ready for the season. But with how cagey Service is on his injury, it just giving me like, hey, we got a second opinion and he's out for 2024. That is just listen, that is just like I've seen this time and time again where the manager plays it off, plays it off, plays it off, and all of a sudden you hear from Shannon Dreyer that he got a second opinion, and old Dr. James Andrews is doing an old Tommy John surgery. Like that is literally the order of operations here. So I'm hoping that I'm like the doomer here, and we don't hear anything like that. Shout out Andrew Clark, because him and I actually talked about this when Matt Brash first came to the major leagues. We loved Matt Brash. His slider is just outrageous. Literally, I think it's the
Yeah.
best pitch in the MLB. Like I would fight
Period.
anybody on him, that slider being the best pitch in the MLB. But just being a baseball guy and watching baseball, like it just seems like that arm. I don't think anything can hold up the arm and what he's doing with that slider. And there's a reason why nobody else can throw a slider like him. So, um,
That is kind of a good point that
yeah.
you make. There's a reason no one else is doing it is because they just can't. Like
Yeah.
physically, it's just hard. Totally possible. I think that's Mariners fan syndrome. I understand why you think it.
Totally.
I'm all right
Yeah,
on it.
it's Robbie Ray throwing one inning of baseball in 2024 and,
Oh.
being on the IL all year. Yeah, I mean, we touched on it a
Yeah.
little bit in the offseason. That Robbie Ray trade really, Mitch Haniger comes back. I think it makes
Yep.
everybody feel a little bit better. It warms everybody's heart a little bit, but kind of an odd trade, to be totally
Yeah.
honest. I think that it offloaded a bigger contract that the Mariners saw wasn't, living up to the hype. I personally didn't love the Robbie Ray signing at the time. I thought it was cool that the Mariners seemingly were going at it or going after it. But I was a fan of I'm blanking on his name, but who the Blue Jays actually signed.
Kevin Gausman.
I was a huge fan of Kevin Gausman, and it made me dislike Robbie Ray a little bit, to be totally truthful.
Dude. Oh,
And
this
so,
squad with Kevin Gausman. Holy fuck.
yeah,
Dude, Bryce
yeah,
Miller coming out of the pen. Kevin Gausman.
outrageous.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Stop. All
and,
right.
and and it's one of those armchair quarterback things. Like as it works out, you're like, see, I
Yeah,
was
for
right.
sure.
Kevin Gausman, like
Yeah.
dope. Robbie Ray literally won a Cy Young the year before.
Yeah.
So like you
It's
understand
tough.
why people would be like, of course Robbie Ray's our guy. But
He had
yeah,
a tough time
that
with the
trade,
Mariners too. I wish him the best. I know a lot of Mariners fans are still pissed about the playoffs and stuff like that. Who
stupid.
cares at this point? Yeah,
Stupid. Yeah,
we're
that's
over it. Cervez put him in the game. No one cares. I hope he bounces
I
back with
still
the
to this
Giants. That'd be
day
awesome.
I still to this day think that the pitcher we're talking about, obviously the 2022 playoffs, Robbie Ray, Yordan Alvarez. I still
Absolutely
think to this
shellacked.
day, Yordan Alvarez was going to hit that home run no matter what. No matter
Yeah.
who was in the game, no matter what pitcher, Paul Sewald, whatever, that hack that he took, that first pitch Robbie Ray threw, that was going to be the hack no matter what pitcher was in the game. Like I promise
I'll
you,
never
like
forget it,
he he was going to hit that ball 450 feet
dude.
no matter who was throwing that ball.
That guy was like a Sandlot villain. Like all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
for
he
real.
literally comes out like the biggest dude you've ever seen, and
Yep.
just thwaps a ball to space. It was actually just I literally heard the villain music in the background. Like there were drums and shit.
This
You could see it coming. It
this might be
just
the most Mariners take ever, but Mariners fan take ever, but it really did feel like we had the Astros that year. like, like it's crazy to say because we got swept, but like that first game when we lost that walk-off, like that we should have won that game. Obviously,
yeah.
there was a couple of walks in that inning, I believe. Like it just the bullpen management was really shifty that day. Like
Yeah.
if you win that game, and then the second game, I forget all the details of the second game, but second game
was close. It was close.
within reach, and then you lose a 18 inning game in Seattle. Like it really felt like if you won that 18 inning game and you won the first game, like they had a chance in that series. So that's my craziest Mariner take of all time because they got swept and got dunked on. So like everybody's like, obviously no chance, but it really felt like it was way closer of a series than people give it credit for.
I'll just say they were the closest out of every team. Everyone else kind of got shit on.
100%.
I think the Mariners were competitive the entire series. Yeah, it was great, but I don't think it's too far off.
Yeah, no, really frustrating. And honestly, it gives me a little bit of pause just because the 2022 season reminds me of a lot of the 2014 Seattle Seahawks, where like losing that at the goal line, like it's such a heartbreaking loss that like it genuinely is hard to recover from. And luckily, we have young enough guys that have shorter memories, and a lot of those guys didn't experience it. Like Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, George Kirby, I don't even think was really a mainstay on that team yet. So like it really feels like we lucked out having such young guys that can't remember the absolute despair that we were in that year, because the 2014 Seahawks, like they remembered that forever. Like it literally ruined a dynasty. Like if they won that 2014 Super Bowl, they're probably going to win 2 more in the next 4 years. Like genuinely, like it would have kept Sherman in Seattle. It would have kept so little football talk, but like the LOB probably wouldn't have been such a disaster. Half of them probably wouldn't be in jail today, and it would have been way better than we are now.
I
But now we're
do
here, and
think, yeah,
Brandon
it's a
Browner is
fair.
serving a life sentence.
Jesus Christ.
That's a
I
real
do
thing.
love that the first podcast back, we're just immediately back to just 2022 heartbreak. It's perfect. That's on brand, to be
that's,
honest.
that's actually a
Um,
very Mariner fan thing to do, is be like, dude, do
yeah.
you remember how close we
Dude,
were?
are you kidding? Robbie Ray really surveys? Dude, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But
But dude,
all right, go ahead.
yeah. So just speaking of sort of some of the off-season stuff that we haven't actually gotten to, JP Crawford, Ty France driveline, Julio, I'm actually afraid he's going to burn out mid-season by how much he's been working this off-season. They're actually holding him from spring training for the first week because he actually needs rest. Like he's been doing so much. Um, I it's really cool to have a superstar on the team that just gives so much of a fuck that you have to like bring him back and stop him from like doing as much as he wants to. Um,
Yeah,
I would love to see a Ty France bounce back. I think a lot of stuff has been done this offseason to sort of rectify what went wrong in 2023. So pretty excited for 24.
yeah. I think that if you aren't rooting for Ty France, you're just not rooting for the Seattle Mariners, because
Yeah,
if first base is an area
so
of need
big.
in 2024, it shifts the whole plan this year. Like
100%.
we'd be
Yeah.
looking we'd be looking at the deadline, things like that, that would be, it, to be honest, way uglier than Ty France just succeeding. Like that's the truth of it. Like
Yeah.
if not struggling, but if we're like a 50-50 team, make the playoffs, not make the playoffs, at the deadline, and Ty France is one of those guys that is struggling, there's going to be some guys that are free agents this offseason. Pete Alonso, if the Mets aren't,
Yeah.
good, like they might require a Bryce Mets. Like, let me put it this way: if Ty France is not good in 2024, we potentially are going to sacrifice Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, and so Ty France, that's on you. So, like, if you
Nice.
play
Yeah.
bad, you are literally giving up Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. That's your
Yeah.
bad.
No pressure, dude. Yeah. Go for it. Go hit some balls.
Yeah, please. He already looked like, I'm not going to overreact this spring, but he looks thinner. His bat speed looks to be a little bit better. He's a lot quieter at the plate, which I like. I personally like. I always thought that when he's really streaky, and part of that was because he's so noisy at the plate. I think that he just gets in grooves where he's really good, and then grooves where he's not so good.
I
So
see what you mean.
I
Yeah.
think being quieter at the plate is going to make him, a little bit more consistent. And that it's a long ass season, 162 games. It's just those ebbs and flows are brutal. So excited for that. But let's
Haniger
go
and
into spring.
Garver. Yeah. As vets to back him up too, I think is going to be big.
Yeah, speaking of Garver, he hit a home run today as we're
Fuck
recording this.
yeah.
Mitch Garver, huge pickup. I think
Yep.
it's going to be one that probably is going to be the biggest of the offseason, to be completely honest. Pending
Yeah.
Mitch Haniger being healthy, I think Mitch Garver has a chance to do something really special again in a position that has really struggled. The DH has been a revolving door of just master classes of strikeouts and terrible
Yeah.
OBPs, and doing some research, the DH spot for the Mariners literally ranked last in the league in average OBP and OPS in 2023. So we can literally only go up from here, but Mitch Garver being an answer to that spot while Polanco is at that second base spot. I'm really excited for both of them to anchor spots that have just been horrific.
Yeah. Awful. Yeah. Honestly, when you're looking at like a quadruple A player like Mike Ford and he is saving your season, you have to look around a little bit. Like it really just felt like the Mariners were good in stretches by the skin of their ass last season because of players like Mike Ford coming out of nowhere, or Jared
Yeah.
Kelenic actually playing well, or JP Crawford playing out of his mind. Like at some point, these players have to stop, you know, playing so well
Yeah.
out of their mean. Yeah, but
Yeah. Well, speaking of Kelnick, I noticed that you've got a Kelnick jersey on. How are
dude,
we feeling about that
Dustin
purchase?
Ackley 2.0. Yeah, we got it.
How are we feeling about that purchase that is fresh as of what, August
Well,
of last year?
honestly, it's better than any Fanatics jersey right now, so I'll take it.
It's authentic. It's stitched.
Yeah.
No heat press.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we might just have
Yeah.
to, restitch over the lettering. Whoever gets number 10 this year, we'll see.
Yeah,
But
you got the Julio jersey, and I got the Kellenic one. I don't know who came out on top on that.
I remember
Shit.
texting about this specifically and being like,
Yeah, that's
kind
a
of,
bad
kind of
idea.
risky, kind of risky, dude, kind of risky.
I
Like
almost got
you
an
and I both
Otani
look.
jersey. I was close, actually.
I did
Dude,
see
I
somebody
suck at
wore.
this.
Dude, I did see somebody wear a Cubs Otani jersey at a spring training game like yesterday. It cracked me up. I was like,
That's so funny.
how many like other team Otani jerseys are there out there? Probably
Dude, how many
thousands, right? Like
delusional fans around the United States?
let
It
me
can't
ask
be
you
just
this. Like
me.
which fan base do you think that besides the Dodgers, which fan base, Dodgers and Angels obviously, but which fan base do you think that has the most Otani jerseys?
Blue
Who
Jays,
Otani
100%. Blue Jays, dude. That flight notification that some
Oh
dude put
god.
out, that was like wholly fake, by the way. Immediately people are buying Otani jerseys, and
Oh
like,
man.
yeah, dude, that was so
Brutal.
funny.
Brutal.
Honestly, this
I love
offseason
that.
was hilarious.
Couldn't happen to a better fan base in the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
Man,
dude, I hate the Blue
those Blue
Jays.
Jays
Yeah,
fans are ruthless on Twitter.
on Twitter and just in real life, like just going to T-Mobile during a Blue Jays series is horrible. It is a
Dude,
terrible time.
people always say like, oh yeah, well if you don't want them to flood the city, then go to the
Show
game
up,
and
yeah.
represent. It's like, dude, I've been to a game where Blue Jays fans are there. Like they make it genuinely miserable. Like
Yeah, you guys all suck. Yeah,
it is literally the worst game or series to go to of the year because
yeah, they're
those Blue Jays
obnoxious.
fans
Yeah,
are brutal. I mean, like, I remember going when I was young and they were like talking shit behind me. I'm like 9 years old and I'm like, dude, this is brutal stuff.
yeah. It's not
So
what you want to see when you go to your team's park to watch your team win a baseball game, and
yeah,
you're just getting like,
imagine being a spry 9-year old thinking that the whole world's in front of you, that everybody loves your team in your
mm-hmm.
hometown, and getting to a Blue
Nope.
Jays series in Seattle and noticing that you are literally the minority in the
Yeah,
stadium. That
that's
is
tough.
not great. Not great. All right. Well, shifting gears a little bit to spring training. We're 4 games through this spring. We're not even in March yet. So naturally, we have to overreact to everything that's going on. Ryan Bliss with a 3-hit game today. Canzone went yard. Garver's gone yard. Let's see. Any other notable? Cole Emerson had a
Haniger went
2.
yard in his first at bat.
Haniger went
Yeah.
yard. Emerson had Cole Young had a 2-run double
Yep.
yesterday. So exciting things. There's things happening all around. I think the pitchers have been okay. Kirby got touched up a little bit. That was kind of annoying. Luis Castillo breezed through his 2 innings. That wasn't really anything of note there.
Yeah, it's spring training's whatever. Like Kellenic hit 300 last year in spring training and then
Yeah, it was
fell
like
off a
380.
cliff. Yeah, dude, he was crushing.
I
And
will say,
to be,
like his first half, he was really
yeah, he
rocking.
was really good, 100%.
So spring training is our World Series.
Yeah, yeah. It just goes to show that spring training does matter, and we should pay attention. No, it's just what I want to see is new pitches. I want to see velocity. I want to see some of the players that got picked up off waivers. Always happens every season. I don't know half the people in spring training. The Mariners have gone to the flea market and picked up 15 new bullpen pitchers and second basemen and stuff like that. So Yeah, just want to see a little bit of contact. Want to see people having fun. It's uh, it's just all I want to see is some baseball and the Mariners play it. So,
Yeah, any people that you're or players that you're like truly excited to see play this spring because you're curious about? Obviously,
ooh,
that Julio's had like the rumored like hand issues. I'm excited for
hmm
him to just be out there, honestly, and present, just so we can stop the Julio injury talk. But
yeah.
anybody that you're genuinely excited that's kind of out of nowhere that is either fighting for a position or maybe some playing time.
Dude, oddly enough, I really do like the Cole Young talk just because he is up and coming and he's probably closer to the MLB than most people want to admit. Um, but Tyler Locklear, like I want to see
Love
a
that.
little bit
Yeah.
more. Because watching Ty France is nice, but I've seen a ton of at bats from Ty France. I'm kind of good on that. I want to see like all the AAA, AA players. Locklear has been in the system for a little bit now. It's kind of now or never for him. Um, so I want to see a little bit more from him. What about you?
Yeah, Tyler Locklear is one of those guys that like I'd love to see more of. And the only problem is if we see more of him, like something
It's yeah,
happens.
something's
Yeah,
catastrophically wrong. Yeah,
so
I get it.
like that is one thing that I'm like a little afraid about. Although I think he's going to be one of the more underrated contributors, whether it's this year or next year.
Sure,
There's a lot of those, but to be honest, I think I'm mostly excited for Ryan Bliss. It's a
I like that.
super vanilla pick. I think a lot of people are excited for Ryan Bliss, but he tore up AAA. It's his second year in AAA. He's knocking at the door. I think he's going to push. Here's what I think is going to happen in the next 2 years. I think whether it's Ryan Bliss or it is going to be Cole Young, I think one of them is going to push Polanco to third. I think that is a very
Mm,
likely scenario where they get their spot at second base, move Polanco over to third. He's already not a great second baseman defensively,
defensively, yeah.
and so I think that Perry Hill, just like he worked with Gino, he can make him a little bit better defensively, serviceable. He can move over to a problem area, and we can have an up and coming second baseman of sorts. The other hybrid to that is with an aging JP and him also not having great defensive stats last year, um, we could potentially move him over to second base, Polanco over to third, and have Ryan Bliss or Cole Young at shortstop in a position
hmm
where they feel a little bit more comfortable. So either one of those, but the biggest thing is here. I think Urias and Rojas, they're two players that I see as weaknesses on this team, and if we can replace them as fast as we can, I think that would be the best idea. I know Chapman's been
Sure.
thrown around a lot. I personally don't give a shit if we sign Chapman or not. I don't think he makes
Yeah.
us like any better, but Rojas and Urias, like you look at it and it's like that's the 9 hole in the lineup,
Yeah, yeah.
like immediately.
Pretty consistently, yeah. Those two are going to be bringing up the rear. I don't
Right.
think we're going
So
to see too much change from that either. And in
no.
regards to some of the players coming up or just in AAA, it's a lot of it. It's just kind of unlikely that a lot of people will work out. So there's a lot of people in the Mariners farm system that are just going to fall off at some point, and it's whether it's in single A, double A, or once they hit the MLB and kind of have a Taylor Trammell of a season where it's just they can't really see it as well in the majors that they do in Triple A. It'll happen. So I think the players that we have now are pretty serviceable, and anything that comes up in the future is going to be pretty cool if they show their worth. I think Cole Young is one of those people for sure. Ryan Bliss is a little bit more of a question mark, and then Locklear is like for sure the most questionable of those three if you're just looking at those three in general. But
Yeah, totally agree. I just think it's fun to have the
100%,
amount of
yeah,
prospects that the Mariners have, the amount of talent. and then having the draft class that we had last year, seeing one of them already pop up into a top 100. We haven't even talked about Lazaro Montez or anybody like that who is incredibly young, not
Dude,
ready
yeah.
by any means. But that Jeter Martinez, like kids like that are like ultra young, but they're
Mhm.
coming. They
Yeah.
might be in the they might be a year, 2 years behind a Cole Young, but a year or 2 years behind Cole Young might be that they're here in 2026. Like
Mhm.
that could be a possibility where they're pushing people at 2026, which, if timing works out in our favor here, it's going to be a perfect handoff between, a Ty France potentially, maybe taking
Sure.
a retirement trip with another team or just retiring in general, and JP doing something similar by 2026, 2027. So
Yeah.
I love that for the Mariners. I don't think that that's happened in the past. I think that we've always rushed to get a team together, but we really have like a good amount of talent in the minor leagues as well as the big leagues. So yeah, well, Mitch, anything else that you had for some off-season talk, some first impressions of spring before we jet off? I know that you and I are going to do a preseason or a season preview here in the next couple of weeks, but anything that you had that you wanted to talk about that we missed?
Dude, I think we're good on it. Honestly, just
Cool.
yeah, follow us on Twitter and join our Twitter community. It's a fun time.
Yeah. Our X community is over 600 people now. So people talking Mariners every single day, all across the
Yup.
world. Shout out to the UK Mariner fans. And I see that they've been getting together a couple of times a year. Shout out them. They've been really cool to have in the community. Also, we're going to start live streams at least every month. So if you haven't hopped on that bandwagon, make sure you get in the community, and we will have dates for you guys that we're going to do live watch-alongs where you guys can be in the chat watching games with us. Mitch and I are really excited to do that for everybody and get some of your favorite Twitter personalities in there as well. Got some lined up already that you guys will enjoy. So appreciate everybody listening, and we will see you guys later.